Everyone, welcome back. We are meeting number 7, House of Commons Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates. Welcome back, Ms. Soloway and Mr. Redford. We have you in for the hour for just a brief in the update. We'll start with a 5-minute opening statement from you. Her statement has been distributed in both languages to the committee as well as other supporting documents that all the committee members have. So welcome back, both of you. We look forward to your testimony today. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I'm grateful for the opportunity to address the committee today. Le Commissariat à l'intégrité du secteur public du Canada est un organisme impartial.
The Office of the Public Sector Integrity Commission of Canada is an impartial, investigative, and quasi-judicial decision-making body. As an agent of Parliament, the office works in the public interest to expose major wrongdoing in the federal public sector. We investigate, and it investigates and renders decisions regarding disclosures of alleged wrongdoing, such as gross mismanagement, serious breaches of code of conduct, and as well as alleged reprisals suffered by the public servants.
More witnesses. After careful analysis of the facts and the law, I render a quasi-judicial decision that is subject to judicial review. Investigation reports of 80 pages are not uncommon, and decisions often exceed 30 pages. This work is accomplished by 9 lawyers who also have other duties, including in-house counsel, as well as 6 investigators and 3 team leaders. 4 admissibility analysts, with the support of the legal team, provide me with recommendations on questions of admissibility. My decisions on admissibility are also subject to judicial review. Depuis 2023, le commissariat observe une hausse.
Since 2023, the office has seen a sustained increase in submissions. No plateau in sight. Small budget increases in 2024 have allowed us to increase output, but our funding falls far short of needs. For example, in 2025, I've rendered approximately 350 admissibility decisions on some 800 allegations, more than the 327 submissions received for the entirety of 2024. Despite increased productivity, we continue to fall behind as new submissions far exceed the completion rate. Currently, we have nearly 300 active files, approximately 66 investigations into 163 allegations. In 2024, following investigations, I rendered decisions on 56 separate allegations.
Complaints. I cannot overstate the importance of providing whistleblowers, respondents, and other parties with reasoned decisions based on thorough investigations, regardless of whether or not there's a finding of wrongdoing. That is at the heart of our raison d'être and is critical in maintaining trust in our public institutions. Whistleblowers must be able to see that their concerns are our concerns and that no stone is left unturned. With our current level of funding, there is a risk that some allegations may never see the light of day. Consequently, my office is preparing to submit a request for urgently needed support. En tant qu'agent indépendant de Parlement, je me dois de...
As an independent agent of Parliament, I have the duty to highlight to you, members of Parliament, that the current budget process has potential to place my independence at risk. I appeal for a review of that process. Our budget requests are submitted through the President of the Treasury Board and the Minister of Finance before submission to the Treasury Board for consideration. This process opens the door for public servants having significant influence over the time and the substance, what is ultimately presented to Treasury Board and then to Parliament. As our Commission has jurisdiction over public servants in these departments, this can create a real or apparent conflict of interest. To be clear, I am not alleging that any public servant has acted inappropriately, yet the risk and the possible perception are very real.
Only the independence of the office, but also the appearance of independence, Parliament itself should determine the office's budget. The Public Servants Disclosure Protection Act notes that it is in the public interest to maintain and enhance public confidence in the integrity of public servants. The Act is one of the many vital checks and balances to enhance public confidence, and delays in investigations not only impact the quality of those investigations, but also can have a negative effect on the confidence in the federal public sector. We owe all Canadians a duty to expose wrongdoing. At the same time, we owe every person who places their trust in us, including those who are themselves accused of wrongdoing, an impartial and timely outcome based on a serious consideration of all the facts. Je vous remercie de m'avoir permis de m'adresser à ce comité.
I thank you for the opportunity to address this committee and welcome any questions you may have.
Ms. Soloway, we'll now start with Mrs. Block for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Soloway, to you and your colleagues for joining us here today to share with our committee the role of your office, your mandate, and some of the pressures that you find yourself under. With the information that you've shared in your opening statement today, the numbers are somewhat alarming in terms of your ability to keep up with the pressure. I think you said in your comments that there is no plateau in sight, that the numbers just keep adding up and adding up. And so I guess keeping those comments in mind, my first question would be, with taking all of that into consideration, do you believe that your office is able to fulfill its mandate?
Well, yes, but not as efficiently and effectively as I'd like. And as I've mentioned in my opening statement, I believe that the risk is there, that there could come a time when there may be allegations that may not see the light of day. We are working diligently at trying to make sure that doesn't happen, but we are at a point in time where I cannot guarantee that we will be able to get to everything. So we haven't given up yet, and as I mentioned, we are going to be asking for increased support. But there is a risk, a very, very real risk, that we will not be able to deal with all of the cases before us.
Thank you. I'm not sure. I'm taking a look back at your opening comments. Did you provide us with the average length of time that it takes you to render a decision on perhaps a complaint that's been submitted?
I did not. I believe that we are currently looking at some cases waiting a decision on admissibility that are, give or take, approximately a year old. As late as last month, I was looking at 14 months, but I think we might have it down to 12 months now. But if you would want a definitive answer, I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. And I guess you may not be able to answer this question, but so what actually happens for that individual who has launched a complaint, is waiting to find out if it's admissible? Do they simply go back to the work that they've been doing and just wait for a response from your office?
I think that it's important to highlight that there are two tracks. We have submissions that are disclosures of wrongdoing or information that indicate that there might be wrongdoing or alleged wrongdoing. And then we have complaints of reprisal against somebody who might have submitted an alleged disclosure. So with respect to the reprisals, under the statute, we're required to provide an answer within 15 days, and we do that. So anybody who alleges that they've been reprised against will receive a response within 15 days as to whether or not we're going to be investigating it. The time that it takes to investigate, however, is a completely different story. On the disclosure side, it's about letting potential, there are a number of different implications to that. One is that if there is something to the disclosure, if it's something that should be investigated, it is allowed to fester for that much longer. And if there is, if it is the kind of conduct that could be, for example, a recent case that I had that is on our website, available on our website, where there was a person in a very senior capacity who was a serial harasser for a long period of time, and that was wrongdoing. And so if we don't get to something like that, obviously people continue to suffer over a longer period of time.
Thank you very much. MacDonald Laurier Institute claims that our laws protect the wrongdoers more than whistleblowers. Can you comment on that?
I'm not really sure what they mean by that. I would have to ask them what they meant by that. In order to arrive at a finding of wrongdoing, there has to be evidence on a balance of probabilities. So I'm only guessing now. It may be that some perceive that to be tipping the scales in favor of the respondent in the cases, because if we have some information or some indication, but not on a balance of probabilities, I could not, under the law, come to a conclusion that there has been wrongdoing. It is possible that some people perceive that to be tipping the scales in favor of an alleged wrongdoer. At the same time, principles of natural justice apply and due process applies, and the balance of probabilities has been or is the test that I am required to apply.
Thank you. Of the 15 recommendations that were tabled by the committee in 2017, how many have been adopted and are currently part of your office now?
Okay, I'm going to have to refer to Brian, not having been around in 2017, so Brian Radford. If you
I'm going to have to interrupt because it is our time. Perhaps you can get to that answer in the next round, or perhaps you can provide that to us in writing. We will now go over to Ms. Rochefort, please, for 6 minutes.
Oui, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So thank you, Madame Soloway, Mr. Radford. I'd just like to ask a few questions with respect to, in your letter, you say it is your view that to protect the independence of the office, that there should come to Parliament for the budget. So in relationship to that, I noted online that they list all of the ombudsman offices, and included in there is your office, the Integrity Commissioner is included. And I think there's about 15 different, the Canada Post Ombudsman, National Capital Commission Ombudsman, the Privacy Commissioner of Canada, the Office of the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner of Canada, and so on. So you're included in that list of what they say are similar organizations within the public service, is how they positioned it. But how would you define the differences with your department, or the Integrity Commissioner, and the Ombudsman offices that are listed on the public sector website?
I'm not aware of that website. I'm happy to address the differences between ombuds and what we do. It is not our role, other than there's an exception to this, but mostly speaking, it is not our role to mediate disputes or look for a mutually agreeable solution, because we're dealing with allegations. This is when we're dealing with disclosures. I'll talk about reprisals in a moment because it's a bit different there. But for disclosures, they are disclosures of wrongdoing. It's like, so people are coming forward and saying, we have evidence and there's enough there to say that something untoward is going on. So we investigate that with a view to obtaining or getting to a point where we can have accountability, if indeed there is wrongdoing, accountability for that wrongdoing. So the disclosure is not personally involved or in the disclosure, even if they may be one of the people in the event, depending on what the nature of the disclosure is. On the reprisal side, we do have a mechanism whereby we can offer conciliation to the parties, but we actually don't do that. We typically get the services of an objective conciliator who takes it offline, and we see whether they can reach an agreement. So in other words, but for the most part, there's a fundamental difference. They want to see issues resolved between parties, and our mandate is to find wrongdoing if it exists and to ensure that there is accountability. It's a very different mandate. I'm not sure if I've explained it very well. Brian could do a much better job from a legal standpoint, for sure.
No, that's an excellent description. At the same time, through the Ombudsman Office, they look at services of government that are provided by public servants. So public servants could say as well that for them it is important that there be some impartiality in terms of budgets. Would that be a fair statement?
I would have to really look at the specific mandate of the specific organizations. Okay. But I would add one other thing. It's not even just that we look at wrongdoing. It is the definition of wrongdoing under the Act. It's critical to understand that it's the type of wrongdoing that is of an order of magnitude that could shake public confidence in the public sector. So it is not every wrongdoing that somebody could perpetrate. It is a wrongdoing that is of such that has so much import. Those are the types of things that we investigate, as opposed to individuals' issues, which typically ombuds people do.
My next question is in the area of funding or the budget. And I come from the world of the municipal sector, so please, I understand it's not the same quite, but there are some similarities from the perspective of, we know that in Ontario at a integrity commissioner level, there's been quite a bit of complaints, and actually the CBC had an excellent interview just late last fall, and they said due to a lack of provincial oversight and standardized processes, taxpayers can be footing excessive billings overall in the field of with respect to integrity commissioner complaints and files that are being investigated. In fact, they say Ontario's local ethic watchdog system, he describes it as a cash cow in the Wild West because of the need for reform in that particular environment. Do you feel that? So for me, it's about trying to understand what's reasonable at a federal level when we talk in terms of budget. And I was just trying to compare. So, for example, I looked at trying to compare to provincial integrity commissioners, but they're difficult to find. So I found, for example, the city of Toronto, they have an integrity commissioner, and there you have a budget of $6 million, or almost $8 million, for 419 files. And for example, the same year of comparison, 23-24, their budget was about $800,000 for 280 direct inquiries. And so I was just trying to understand. I know it's not these are somewhat apples and oranges, slightly, I understand. But how do we get to what is a reasonable budget? And that for me is the concern of a budget coming to a parliament versus within a Treasury board where they would have standards to compare and evaluate. What would be your comment with respect to that?
It's apples to oranges. The mandates are completely different. It is not because we have the name or the word integrity in our titles that there's in any way a parallel.
I'm sorry, Ms. Soloway, we've reached our 6 minutes, but perhaps you could provide a more fulsome response in writing, or perhaps next time we go to the Liberal side. We'll now go to Ms. Gaudreau, please, for 6.
De nous offrir tous ces détails.
Well, thank you very much for all this detail. I like to hear complimentary things about the efficiency of our work. However, if you don't have sufficient resources, I'd like to know a bit more about the impacts and consequences. Well, if we're lacking or underfunded, there are some issues that will never be the object of an investigation. And given the fact that it takes a long time to investigate, the longer the person involved is in a difficult situation. If we draw attention to a certain issue, this individual who is either the accused person or the suspected person or the whistleblower. It's not an easy situation to be in that kind of situation if you find yourself accused of something without getting any resolution. We have a case, it's online if you want to check it. There was a leakage of polluted water in Matsqui, in any case. And this investigation took quite a bit of time because it was an ongoing situation, and it would cause even further damage. There are individual and unique circumstances and results in each case, and it would be very difficult to convince the public that there is adequate oversight over the federal institutions to the degree that people are convinced that it's working as well as it could. This undermines the public confidence that the public has in our institutions. Well, that says a lot. In 2017, there were some recommendations, which I think there were 14 recommendations, if I recall, which have been implemented since then. I'll let Mr. Radford answer that question. Well, to clarify the question, you're referring to the 16 recommendations that Commissioner Friday had proposed. That was
from way back,
As a result
not
of the legislative
specifically
review. Okay.
Mr. Friday's.
Yes. Ces recommandations avaient été faites.
well, the recommendations were of this committee, and it was made. The report was transmitted to the government. The Secretariat, the Treasury Board, and the government did not implement any legislative changes as were recommended by this committee. So the legislation in 2025 remains the same as what it was in 2017. Some of the recommendations were more operational, if you will, improve efficiency, for example. Most of those were handled and implemented by the internal staff of the department or agency involved. The Secretary Treasury Board put in certain measures so that there would be a rough harmonization, if you will, of the implementation of those recommendations from department to department or agency to agency, because they are totally autonomous. Now, the recommendations which were transmitted to the government by way of a report from this committee were not implemented by the government. Okay. We work diligently. We make a number of recommendations, and once it's tabled in a democratic way, transparent, and that takes budget, that takes organization and planning, because disclosure is seen as reprehensible in many sectors, and of course the whistleblower can find himself in limbo. I mean, it takes 2 weeks to get an answer, and there might be reprisals, and this living in a very difficult environment. Well, what happens with the whistleblower once they've brought forth an allegation to us? If somebody comes to us with some disclosure, some matter, we don't share that information with anybody. And so if the whistleblower doesn't share the fact that they blew the whistle, the disclosure won't be known by anybody except for us. And in that case, the individual is protected in the sense that no one is aware of his or her identity. In certain cases, for some reason or other, people might think that they know who the whistleblower was. We've had cases where somebody who presumed to have been a whistleblower, wrongly, in other words, did suffer some reprisals. Now, even
interrupt. Colleagues, if I can ask everyone just keep an eye on their clocks to allow extended time, because we only have Ms. Soloway for an hour with us today. Thanks. Mr. Patzer, go ahead, please, for 5.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here today. Just at the start of the meeting, I went to your website and I noticed that there was an info block, and I was just talking to some other folks, and they ran into the same thing as well too. And I actually just got a quick screenshot of it here. It says the office is receiving an unprecedented number of disclosures of wrongdoing, reprisal complaints, and general inquiries. As a result of increased submissions, delays in the analysis and investigations of files are expected. In the numbers that you presented to this committee, it's actually kind of shocking, and I would say alarming, at how sharp of a climb there is in cases. Do you have any reason for why that is?
Everyone's asking me that, and I have no way of knowing. I can tell you that it's not I have no reason to believe that it's because there's more wrongdoing. There's no data that would suggest that. I can't disprove that either, but there's no data that would suggest that. My sense is that it's in my career, I've seen the startup of many new organizations, and particularly those that render a service to the public. It takes a while for those people who might access that service to even realize that it's there, and then once they do, to have enough trust in it to bring it forward. My best guess, because I have no way of verifying it, is that I do believe that the office was established in 2007, and I think that at a certain point in time, there was a critical mass period where people knew enough about it to start using it, and then that gave rise to more and more and more. That is my belief, but I have no evidence or proof to say that. But if you're asking me what I think, that's what I think.
Do you think, are you concerned about there maybe being a culture that's been instilled that's enabled some of this? And part of it too is because it takes so long to get an answer, or because there's so many cases, do you think that people maybe just feel like, well, they're not gonna get to it anyway, so I can just do whatever I want, and what's anyone gonna do about it? Are you worried that there might be a culture of that developing or brewing?
I'm worried that that could develop. Again, I don't have evidence that it's brewing, but it would not be an illogical consequence of the situation.
Wow. And then when you look at the stats, like, okay, so prior to 2021, everybody was working in offices. We have a lot of the public service now working from home. Do you think that there is a correlation between people not being in an environment where they are with people who might be abusive, might be committing serious wrongdoings, as you said, in the nature of it, but then now that people are working from home, that they now feel safe to make complaints? Do you think that there's a correlation to that?
Again, I don't have evidence, but if you're asking me for my feeling on it, I wouldn't say so, because people could be reprised against whether they're working from home or working in the office. People can be subject to wrongdoings, whether they're at home or in the office. So I don't think so, but I don't have evidence to back that up. It's just, if you're asking me my view, that's kind of what I think.
Okay, there was an article from 2012 that the Government Accountability Project announced Canada's whistleblower protections are among the weakest in the world, tied with Lebanon and Norway. The project was especially critical of the fact that only 8 retaliation cases have been heard by the Public Servants Disclosure Protection Tribunal, despite PSDPA having come into force 17 years ago. There's lots of other quotes kind of about the functionality so far here. I guess why are we viewed as having some of the weakest protections in the world?
I'm not trying to be evasive. I think you'd probably have to ask the authors of that. I'm not sure. Again, my sense is that they're looking at a legislative framework and trying, which, having worked internationally a lot, it really is hard to compare jurisdictions. But I do know that there was a task force that was struck around 2 years ago, to look at the PSDPA, because of some of the articles, such as the one that you're citing, a recognition that I think improvements are required. I am keen to know what the outcome of that task force is. And I'm hopeful that to the extent that there are weaknesses in the Act, and there are weaknesses in the Act, I'm not pretending otherwise, in my view, that's my personal view, I'm looking forward to seeing that report to see what proposals are being made.
Thank you very much for being here, more importantly for the work that you are both doing. Maybe just building on that last comment around the advisory task force, can you explain from your perspective what the mandate or what the task that's been put forward to the task force is?
When I started in my position about 2 years ago, shortly thereafter, I appeared at the task force. But other than the fact that they're looking at the PSDPA, I have no inside information at all regarding what it is specifically that they're looking at.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I think, in preparing for today's meeting, my understanding is that it does include the task of reviewing past recommendations of this committee as part of their work, which I think is really an important piece as we move forward. From your perspective, what kinds of improvements or changes would you like to see not only them reviewing, but being incorporated in the review of the PSDPA?
Okay, well, I do know that my predecessor did make submissions prior to his departure. There are, I think, a number of areas that could be looked at. I'm always hesitant, there are policy reasons for a lot of things, so, and there are many things at play. One of the things that is an impediment to our investigations, but that may be by design, but it nevertheless is an impediment, is the fact that if evidence exists outside the federal public service, I'm not allowed to look at it. I'm not allowed to even ask somebody for it. So it's not even a question of that my powers to compel don't apply to people, is that I'm not even allowed to ask. So, if, for example, there's an issue that involves, anybody from the outside, it's tricky. Now, it's sort of in conflict with other provisions because the Act does allow somebody from outside the public service to provide me with information about wrongdoing and that I can use to launch an investigation. So I can't launch the investigation unless I can talk to that person. So I've interpreted the Act to mean that I can go back to at least the person who's provided me with the information to try to get more. But my hands are tied in several investigations because I just cannot go outside. That's one example.
Thank you. Maybe switching gears slightly to some of your opening comments around just the extent of the caseload and the work that you are doing and your current requests for urgent funding. Can you provide details as to what you are asking for and maybe as well what outcomes that funding would enable you to achieve?
Well, we're working on that because we have, with some of the funding that we got, developed the data analytics capacity. So I'm heavily reliant on data to be able to answer that question fully. What I can tell you is in our last ask, I asked for I believe I asked for 9 million, and I had all the justifications for that. So just in response also to Madame Rochefort, It's all of the justification for it and the explanations for it are contained in my budget ask, and we only got $1 million. So, you know, I know that at a minimum, we still need what I originally asked for because I didn't ask for anything that I didn't need. And it's a combination of things, primarily personnel, but of course, anything related to personnel like space. And that's a big issue because it costs money to rent space or to have space or to fit up space. And that money is in short supply in the system. So we're looking at that now. For example, we were able to hire some people based on the funding that we got, and now we're in a bit of an accommodation crisis. And PSBC is working with us on that, but there is a real question as to where we're going to get the money to fit up office space that we can operate in. So, you know, it's a combination of personnel and everything that enables that personnel to actually work. Does that answer the question?
It does answer the question. That's
we're
time.
past, yeah.
Sorry.
Thanks. Ms. Gaudreau for 2.5, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. So there's missing millions that you're short. If I understood your figures a little earlier, 800 submissions, which completely exceed the resource capacity that you have, whether they are under review or being investigated. To your mind, what is the essential role that you have? I think that the impact clarifies clearly essentially the public should have and develop trust in our public institutions. So we need an instrument such as the Commission to investigate serious cases of wrongdoing. It's essential. Without that, there's no overview. I can't imagine a credible public service that doesn't have an overview function, oversight. But insofar as the resources that you have at hand, how can you qualify the perception of the results of your work? A scale of 1 to 10. Well, it depends who's answering the question. We don't have, we do have a mechanism that can judge a certain way, but some people are satisfied, others are not, and it's when a decision goes in a direction or trend that they appreciate, they'll say yes, they trust. If it goes counter to their beliefs or ideology, no, they won't be happy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Time is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madame Soloway, I'm reading through your opening remarks about the sustained increase in submissions, and while we don't know what's driving that, the submissions of wrongdoing have more than doubled since 2020, but the staffing has not kept pace due to limited resources. Could you speak a little bit about how large is the current backlog? Now, I think you mentioned it was a year or 12 months, for 14 months to 12 months in terms of the timing. But can you speak to the number of cases and what service standards or service standard targets are realistic under the present funding?
Okay, thank you for that question. So I'll give you an example. So for example, for investigations, from the time the investigation is launched until the end, our service standard had typically been with 80% of the time to be able to complete the investigation within a year. Okay. We're not meeting that now. There's no way we can meet that now. I would have to get those statistics for you. They're readily available. I just don't have them with me to tell you how often we're meeting it now. But we're not. And now we have 66 pending investigations, and I have 6 investigators and 3 team leaders. Now, even if an average investigator, or it doesn't really work that way, but let's say they can complete 4 to 5 cases a year. Doing the math, we understand that we have now a years-long backlog in terms of completing some of these investigations, with more being added to the pile weekly. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Partially, maybe you can submit some of the statistics to the committee after, if that's possible. So when I look at the 66 investigations, for instance, that may be in the backlog, is it safe to assume that some are more serious than others? Are you prioritizing some over others, or is it a first in, first out?
It's a combination of both. We will not investigate anything that is not a big deal. So they're all big deals, to be clear. In terms of prioritizing, it's not necessarily strictly first in, first out. A lot has to do with which investigators have capacity and what they are more specialized in. And it's about managing everything all at once. So I don't have a strict rule, first in, first out. And in fact, it's not the case. So even, even in admissibility, I'm trying to work from both ends so that some people are receiving very timely responses and some people aren't. And I'm hoping that we'll meet somewhere in the middle. We have gained efficiencies. We have been producing on the analysis side, the admissibility analysis side. We completed more than I believe. I would have to go to the statistics. Hang on, but I believe that we've completed more this year than we have in all of than we received in all of last year. But because our numbers are rising so rapidly, we're still falling behind. So submissions received thus far in 2025, we've received 444, and we've completed 395 analyses. In all of last year, we received 419. So we will certainly complete more this year than all of the ones we got in last year combined, but we're still going to fall behind. Plus, we have older cases that are still there. Brian, do you want to add anything?
Our rate of efficiency has increased every year. Last year, of the 419 files received, we completed 342 of them. And as the Commissioner indicated, this year we've completed 395 so far. We're trying new ways to address cases as quickly as possible. And as the Commissioner indicated, we're not just addressing old files in the backlog. We are addressing on a weekly basis new files that come in, plus at the same time the older files, so that we can tackle as many as possible as quickly as possible.
And just very briefly, just a quick status update on the task force that was founded in 2022.
I don't know. My understanding through the grapevine, but it's only grapevine, is that they've completed their report. But more than that, I couldn't tell you.
Thank you. We'll now go to Mr. Gasparo. Sorry, before you do start, Mr. Gasparo, I'm going to mention now before I forget, we do have a item within this committee. Any documents or any responses promised are required within 21 working days. We just ask you to remind that to be sent to the clerk. Mr. Gasparo, the time is yours, please. Go ahead, sir.
Great, thank you. And to the witnesses, I want to thank you for your public service. I like one of my colleagues, I have some experience at the municipal level dealing with, an integrity commissioner, and both of your CVs are quite impressive. So, I'm, as I said to other witnesses, the fact that you chose public service, thank you. The Can you explain what protections are currently in place for public servants who report wrongdoing?
That's a very good question. Thank you for it.
It doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
It's a very it's a really good question, because we've struggled with that notion of protection, and the fact of the matter is that en amont, as they would say in French, there's not a lot we can do. The way we protect is by keeping the information that we get confidential. But of course, when you're talking about due process and people being given the right to respond in a fair way to allegations against them, there may be some aspects that, in order to give that person the full right of defense, have to be disclosed. So I can say that we protect by not divulging anything that we have to, unless we have to and until we have to. We also have the reprisal regime, but again, it's ex post facto. It launches once somebody is already alleging that they've suffered a reprisal. I guess one hopes that there's a deterrent effect because those measures are there. So it does exist as a deterrence, but per se, I have no jurisdiction to, for example, pull somebody out of a difficult situation and give them something alternate to do or whatever. I have no powers to do that. So any protections come in the form of deterrence because there is the complaint regime, and also in keeping things confidential. I'm just going to ask Brian if he wants to add anything to that. I think it is a really good question, and probably an area, I would imagine that the task force, I'm assuming, might have looked at, and it'll be interesting to see what they say.
Do you think those protections have been are well communicated within the public service? Are people within the public service aware that there are some levels of safeguards and protection for them if they launch a complaint or raise an issue?
Even before my arrival, the office had worked for years very hard at raising awareness. And I do believe that a lot of the reason for the surge that we're seeing now is because there's more awareness. Yet and again, I have no data, but and it might be time to try to acquire some. But my belief is, or my suspicion is, that there are many people who don't understand or don't know about the possibility out there. Now, there are other what we call internal mechanisms inside many departments where there's a senior officer in charge of disclosures. And there are also ombuds persons, as raised before, and we hope that internally in departments they are raising awareness amongst their staff as well. It's a shared responsibility to try to get the word out that is the case.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gaspar. We'll go to Mrs. Block for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Your office has been investigating complaints of reprisals of 2 former witnesses that came forward during our ArriveCan study who testified at this committee. And without giving us any details, because I'm sure you cannot do that, do you finally have a timeline for this investigation that you can give us?
The reason I can't answer I can't give you an answer on that without disclosing anything about specific cases. I'm going to refer to Brian, who will say what we could say or say that we can't. Brian.
At this point, we don't have a timeline for the completion of the investigations that you are referring to. All reprisal investigations require the submission of a preliminary investigation report for people involved. That takes time, the consideration of their submissions. So it would not be prudent for us to comment further on that particular allegation or investigation.
So when did your investigations begin?
In those particular situations, I don't have the dates when those investigations began, but like all reprisal complaints, the admissibility analysis would have been completed in 15 days from the receipt of the form, and within 15 days, a commissioner would have decided to investigate some or all of the allegations. So that would bring us back to, I would imagine, about a year ago. But I'm not sure of the commencement, of the date of the commencement.
Okay, thank you. Again, it's been noted by my colleagues that on your website, you note that you are receiving an unprecedented number of disclosures of wrongdoing. And although some details may not be public due to ongoing investigations, can you provide us with which departments appear to have the highest number of reports of wrongdoing?
No. Brian?
We have never reported on the number of disclosures made from a particular department. Now, in a large organization, it's not surprising that we would receive several or even numerous disclosures. We're talking about very, very large departments of many thousands of people. Until now, so far at least, we have not disclosed the number of disclosures coming from specific departments or the regions. There's an element of confidentiality to that, because if we do it for some, we may have to do it for others. And there are very small organizations where the chief executive of that organization or the management there would be very surprised to learn that a disclosure was made against them, or two or three. I think it could potentially expose whistleblowers who come to us, because when a person comes to us, if something is not investigated, the only person who knows is the discloser. We do not share that information with the department. So there's an important element of confidentiality associated with that information.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. So can you tell us how many whistleblowers have been reinstated to their jobs after reprisal since the creation of your office? Do you track that, I guess?
Well, first of all, we are aware of the reprisal complaints that have been made to us, a number of investigations that we have conducted. As you may know, 10 cases were referred to the tribunal, and of those cases, 2 went the entire way of a hearing, and others were resolved by way of mediation. The settlements are generally confidential between the parties. The parties seek that confidentiality. We ourselves offer conciliation during the course of a reprisal investigation. We have completed approximately 26 successful conciliations over the years. Of those 26, many people are still employed in the public service. Others retired, others accepted a financial settlement. Those agreements are also confidential at the request of the parties themselves.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Goudreau, please, and then we'll finish up with Mr. Patzer and Ms. Rochefort. Apologize. I thought that's what I said. I apologize. My mistake. I'm new to this, folks. Okay, that's it for today. Goodbye. No, it's Miss Cleed and then Miss Gaudreau, then Mr. Pats or Miss Rochefort to finish. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. I am quite new to this, so please pardon my ignorance if I ask you some questions that may not make sense. I'm just wondering, what is your interaction with other commissioners that are oversight bodies or transparency agencies across our government?
We meet occasionally. We meet occasionally, and we share views and exchange what we can to, with one another. I know that several of my colleagues have a similar concern over the funding mechanism, for example. Several of my colleagues already have an independent funding mechanism. So, for example, the parliamentary budget officer gets his budget from Parliament. Elections, same thing. And also the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. So that's the kind of model that the rest of us would like. So we do exchange, if that, yeah.
Do you think that there's an opportunity for all of the commissioners to be able to work together somehow, or should people be operating in individual silos based on what their respective duties are?
You know, I personally think that it never hurts to look at anything that you want to look at, but I do think that our mandates are all very different. Requiring different expertise, requiring different firewalls in terms of confidentiality, some of which are not compatible. So, for example, in my case, it is the Auditor General. If there is a complaint under the PSDPA against me, it is the Auditor General who would investigate or who would consider those allegations. I think that, and they, we have cases with one another, right? And so my personal view is I don't necessarily see a room, if you're just asking me offhand, but I haven't done an analysis, I don't see enough of a commonality in our mandates to be able to do that offhand.
Fair. Are there cases where multiple commissioners would have to get involved?
Not in our case. I can't speak for the other commissioners, but we are very at arm's length with everybody. I don't go to deputy ministers' meetings. I don't go, we're at arm's length from everybody.
Do you think that your office functions as efficiently as you would like it to?
I have never worked anywhere where I didn't think I could gain more efficiencies. So that's for as long as I work and as long as I have a job, I will always be looking for more efficiencies.
On that then, what are your top most issues that need to be more efficient in your office?
I think we're working on a lot of them. I think I can tell you some of the things that we've done, for example, is, with some of the funding that we did get, our IT infrastructure had been older than 2007. It predated the office. It was on the verge of collapse. And in addition to that, it didn't really allow us to have any kind of meaningful data analytics. So now that's transformed, and we're in the process of starting to collect data because, of course, we can't collect data when data didn't exist. And that is a work in progress and something that we are committed to working toward some more. We are also looking at just the processes and the way we do things, and we have discussions, a minimum of weekly, to see if we can do things better. Quality control is critical. I am issuing quasi-judicial decisions. I know I have been asked in the past about the use of AI. It's not an option for my decisions or legal analysis. But we are very open to and are constantly seeking better ways of doing things.
What is the biggest challenge that you're facing right now in your office?
Just a brief answer, please.
Staff and space.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ms. Cleed. Now we'll go to Ms. Gaudreau, please.
Moi, j'ai seulement 2 minutes 30.
I only have 2.5 minutes, but I'd like to know if there's any pertinent information that you would like to add to what we already have. Anything constructive which would help you to make your life easier. Well, last week, I was at the Parliamentary Library with other commissioners to reply to questions that their staff might have and new parliamentarians might have. So I'm quite sure that the librarian would be quite prepared to prepare and offer a briefing session or an orientation section on what we do on our office. All staff and employees of the commission constitute a very, very loyal and performant team. And I want everybody to know that we really, really need more resources if we're to completely accomplish our mandate.
I stand ready, and just in response to Madame Rochefort's last question, I would never ask for money willy-nilly, and it would be fully supported by data and a full explanation. It's not about a number, it's about what we need, and that's where we get to a number. So I really do hope that I have that support, and I really do believe that it's an important mandate for the Canadian public. With every decision I write, and as I said, some are very, very lengthy, I try to explain, especially in cases where there's no finding of wrongdoing, pourquoi il n'y a pas une détermination qu'il y avait quelque chose.
Particularly when we don't have a determination of
looked at, and that we were really serious about it. And I hope that they can come away feeling that there is a check and balance.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Patzer, please.
Thank you very much. How many employees do you have working for you again?
I think at this point we're just over 40. Is that right? I mean, depending on some people come and go, but we're about, I'm going to say low 40s, like 40, 41 right now.
Okay. I do have a bit of a tough question for you. A couple of years ago, the Center for Free Expression said, and I quote, "After approaching PSIC without success, dozens of public servants in desperation have contacted volunteer whistleblowing advocacy groups like the Center for Free Expression, and we get to hear their stories. Almost without exception, they describe treatment from PSIC that's dismissive, obstructive, often humiliating, and always fruitless in the end. PSIC appears to be institutionally hostile towards the people it's supposed to protect, seeming to view them as liars and troublemakers while they apparently treat the alleged wrongdoers with deference and consideration." End quote. I guess the buck, you're at the top of the charts. The buck stops with you. I'm just curious, when you hear a statement like that, what do you have to say about a statement like that?
Well, I've met with the Center for Free Expression on a number of occasions. I've been in this job for 2 years. And as I've just said, I have never worked with a group of people who are more dedicated to the mandate than the group that I'm working with now. So I cannot speak. I don't know when that statement was made. I do believe it was prior to my arrival. So I cannot speak for that or where that came from. But I can tell you that in my estimation, we have an excellent team who is dedicated and who is, each one of them are trying to treat everybody with respect, and they really do respect people. They respect the whistleblowers, they respect the respondents, and they respect the witnesses. And that's what I've seen since I've been in the office. So I can't speak to why they said what they said at the time that they said it, but all I can do is tell you what I've seen in the office since I've been there. That doesn't mean we've been perfect. I'm sure we have not been perfect, but we really try to be perfect and to try to right wrongs if there are any wrongs. That's, I guess, what I have to say about that.
Okay, so have you ever had to remove an employee because of misconduct towards a whistleblower?
At all. Not at all. And, we have a process now where we we have an intake process whereby I sit at the table with the analyst, with a lawyer, and we discuss the cases that we get or the submissions that we get, and I see a lot of compassion around the table always. And so I've never even come close to having to intervene.
Okay, thank you for that. Like I said, I know it's a tough question, and I appreciate that you have confidence in the workforce there. I guess I only got a little bit of time here left. I guess just kind of going back to the sheer volume of cases that you are seeing. Are you formulating a plan? I know we've talked a lot about funding, but do you have a plan in place, or are you working on a plan to try to really shorten these timelines to try to address the concerns that are part of the concerns that I think have to do with timelines previously? I think that's part of why we hear what we hear in older in that article from 2022. But do you have a plan to try to shorten the timelines to get people a resolution faster and quicker, so that way they don't have to endure repeated harassment from a superior or a colleague?
There's only so much juice you can squeeze from a lemon. At the same time, every single day we're looking for more efficiencies. Every single day we're looking to see how we can provide a fulsome response in each case as quickly as possible. We are looking at our organization now. I'm considering so many different options about maybe different classifications or different expertise. Not a day goes by when we're not thinking about that. But there really is only so much juice you can squeeze from an orange.
Thank you very much. I think we're done. Do you mind if I just ask a couple of quick questions? I've been on this committee in the whistleblower file for a while. I think I brought up, I may have missed the answer, and I do apologize if I did, the advisory task force on whistleblowing. What has been your involvement with that, or your office's involvement?
Shortly after I arrived, they asked to speak to me, and so I did, with Brian, in fact. But that's it. Otherwise, we're not involved. I think it's a bit late. They've written their report.
Have you seen the report? Or?
No.
No?
No idea.
Is it published to you?
No. I'm again, it's Grapevine. Grapevine says that they've completed their report, but
it was due, over a year ago.
But I have no idea where it is or what's in it.
Okay. Maybe it's something we can follow up internally with among ourselves. But thank you very much for your time. It's nice to see both of you here again. I'm going to excuse you both and go on to some quick committee business regarding the budgets in the schedule. So thanks very much. Leave the water behind.
It's always a pleasure. And if there is a need for more information, don't hesitate to reach out.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I'll get to Mr. Patzer. Let me just... Okay. Thanks again. The clerk has distributed 3 budgets we need quick approval for. As always, these are maximums, and we probably will not spend anywhere close. So the first one is, if I could read, it's $500 for the PBO study that 2 reports that we've already done, if we can get approval for that. Thank you. One was for water only. Second one for today's Public Service Integrity Commissioner, $500 for the water. I'm sure we'll come in quite a bit below that.
Si je suis d'accord, Monsieur le Président.
I agree, Mr. Chair. For consensus, you have to take a look at me, and if I do a thumbs up. Was there a delay in the interpretation? Were you listening in?
It's the meeting we had, or our 2 report stage for the Consul General for New York, which is $1,000, and again, we will not come anywhere close to that. So we're all fine with that? Wonderful. Just very quickly, budgets, just updating everyone back and forth between ministers. Minister Lightbound is made itself available for October 23rd for the first hour for Canada Post, which we had requested. Leaves the second hour, and this is going to get to, I originally suggested we move back some of the study because we didn't have the minister nor Canada Post would be available. Now that he is, I figure we'll do the second hour, will be witnesses. I had said we'll move the request for witnesses back because I thought we'd do the study later. Now it looks like we'll start it. So I will ask everyone to get witnesses in by next Tuesday for 3 o'clock. Okay. So some have already been submitted. Just resubmit your list, please, with your priorities. The 28th, then we'll also fill in from that witness list. The President of the Treasury Board has made himself available for the 30th. At the same time, of course, that Minister Lightbound, PSBC, is going to be available. So we are going to take the first one who said yes, which was Treasury Board. So they'll be here on the 30th for about an hour 20. That gives us just enough time to get through appropriate rounds. We've asked Minister Lightbound now to find another time for us, and he's agreed to reappear on his mandate. The original request was for the mandate, but he's doing Canada Post first. So he will get back to us hopefully in the first week of November for 1 hour on his mandate briefing and everything else with us. And that is what I had. Mr. Patzer? Sure, and then Ms. Block. Sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Since we're in committee business, I would like to move a motion, if I may, and I will get my staff to circulate that to the clerk here, if you don't mind, Andrew. So I'm just going to read the motion in. You'll get a copy of it, so you'll get to see it, but I'll read it here quickly anyway. And so whereas the government recently announced a defense investment agency housed within Public Services and Procurement Canada, which is overseen by the Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates, that pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee studied the creation and planning of the Defense Investment Agency for no fewer than 2 meetings, that at least 1 meeting be scheduled no later than October 28th, that the committee invite officials from Public Services and Procurement Canada, the Secretary of State for Defense Procurement, and the CEO of the Defense Investment Agency to appear for 2 hours, that the committee also invite officials from the Privy Council Office, the Prime Minister's Office, the Treasury Board Secretariat, and any department involved with appointments made for the Defense Investment Agency. So that's the motion I would like to move. I think given that there's this new Defense Investment Agency, there's been a gentleman appointed to it. He is, we have called for him as the CEO. I think it would be good to have him come talk about his vision for defense procurement. We know the government has done this, created this agency as a chance and an opportunity to streamline procurement. I've read several news articles actually on I guess kind of what the next steps and what the next phase is for the government when it comes to procurement versus purchasing versus also our defense strategy here in Canada as well. But I do think for the sake of this new agency, it would be helpful to have the Secretary of State and the CEO up here. I've got a few other names listed here as well too, but I think this is a very friendly motion in line with other typical motions that this committee does by inviting either ministers or government officials to talk about what their mandate is. Has it been circulated, Chair? Okay, right on. So so I guess I would maybe turn it over to the committee if they to read it. If there's any questions, happy to answer any questions on it. But I do think this is a pretty simple, straightforward motion.
Okay, I'll start a speaking order at Ms. Rochefort.
Simply, I'd like to understand what is the difference in this motion with the one that our colleague, Madame Gaudreau, made with respect to Canada Post, where she had to give notice. So how is this? My impressions were that when Madame Gaudreau brought forward the motion for Canada Post, she had to give us notice, and then so tonight there's no notice. I'm comfortable just with motions being brought forward like this without me having had a chance to read it.
Yeah, we went into committee business to discuss and get the budgets approved.
Okay.
When we're in a committee business, people can bring in table motions.
So why was
So
she not
we're-
allowed to bring a motion that when she had one a few weeks ago on?
I am
Was
not
there
sure
a
we're
difference?
referring to the issue at hand. We're discussing the motion at hand right now.
So I'm just trying to understand, I guess,
We're
how
in committee
motions.
business.
Yes.
He's tabled a motion, so
Correct.
we're debating the motion.
Okay.
So I have speaking orders of Ms. Khalid.
Thank you, Chair. I am not able to view the text of the motion, and I would respectfully ask for you to suspend the meeting until we can. I'll just wait.
Can you repeat that?
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if you can perhaps suspend the meeting while you distribute to us paper copies of the motion, because I am not able to access it on my phone at
Perhaps
this
you
time.
can share it with one of your
I
members.
would
don't think
prefer
we
to have my own
have
copy,
it
Chair.
tabled. Oh, okay.
I would like to also suspend the meeting so I can discuss this with my colleagues. This is a
We
bit of
can
a
suspend-
surprise.
Sure,
Would
we
have
can
loved advance
suspend,
notice.
Say 5 minutes.
I would prefer 10, Chair.
I'll give you 5.
We'll see. Thank you, Chair.
It's not a we'll see. You don't determine this, Ms. Khalid, and I appreciate your humor with it, but we'll give you 5, okay? Ms. Khalid? Oh, Ms. Suds? What did I say? I've been saying suds. I've been saying suds. She corrected me the first time I was here, and I've been saying suds.
Really?
Miss Suds, go ahead. Sorry, Miss Suds, go ahead.
Okay, I have 2 points to make, and maybe I'll start with the first, which was around your earlier comments of when the minister is coming, if I may. I hadn't had a chance to discuss that. So the 23rd, of course, that's great. He can come to kick off that Canada Post study. I believe that both Minister Lightbound and Minister Ali have made themselves available for October 30th. And I would...
For the same hour, though. Not, normally we get them hour, and 1 hour, 1 hour. My understanding is for the exact same hour.
My understanding is that they had agreed to both come and to split the time.
But split 1 hour, not split 2 hours.
I was under the impression it was an hour and a half.
No. It was going to be 120 and then 120, which would allow us to get the most of the rounds in. But I'd be happy with 1 hour and 1 hour, but not shared 1 hour, or not shared 1 hour and 20.
Yeah, I mean, that's at the discretion. My point being is I think it would be better to have him sooner than later. And if he's made himself available for October 30th, I think that would be advantageous for all of us to hear from him directly on his mandate, as well, of course, as Minister Ali. So that's my first point. Second point, with respect to the motion, would have been lovely to have had advance notice. Obviously, it was translated and ready to go. So regardless, here we are. I'd like to suggest an amendment to the motion, simply to change the starting date. So on here it has one meeting to be scheduled no later than October 28th. And I would suggest that this study not be started until all witnesses from the Canada Post study has been to committee.
One issue about that, like, are you referring to, like we had said, the 23rd and 28th for Canada Post?
Correct.
Are you saying after the 28th? As opposed, but there may be other witnesses after that. So
correct.
The study could end up, because if we have the estimates, we could end up with 1 day in February. So
I think the point is that we had decided to prioritize the Canada Post study, and I don't want to disrupt the flow of witnesses to start this before we have heard from them.
we can do after the 23rd and the 28th.
Are there further witnesses that we're expecting?
Well, the president of Canada Post, after, as indicated, they have 45 days to distribute a return a report to the government. So that was probably 35 days or 10 days ago. So 35 days for that, but also issues around the labor disruption.
Yeah.
So
my point is I don't want to start this study until the completion of the Canada Post study.
go ahead, Mr. Patzer.
I'm just wondering, would you accept if we just said, so I recognize that I inadvertently created a jam with the 28th suggestion. Could we do at the first opening at the chair's discretion, something to that line? So that way, if it's it might be November, just because, like to his point about what the timeline of what that could look like with the Canada Post. We might have some meeting openings in November that we could call these folks to. And I mean, I think it's standard practice for this committee to have more than one study on the go, if I'm correct, Chair. So we know that schedules are, can change and can move around a little bit. So, and there's multiple people on this list, so it might be easy to get two of them to come for a meeting one day, and then you might be able to fill some gaps that we have in the schedule. So I just would like to give you the flexibility on that rather than perhaps maybe force you to have to do it by such and such a date. So would that be acceptable?
Well, we're discussing the amendment. We'd have to
I guess I can't amend my own.
amendment, but
maybe,
why don't we see what Ms. Gaudreau has to say first, then Ms. Khalid.
Oui. Alors, Monsieur le Président.
Okay. Chair, thank you. Let's get back to basics. There's 10,000 addresses in Canada among several million Canadian households. And no, this is just a preamble. Please, I could talk more quickly. Because it's urgent, because it's a priority, because we've adapted the other motion, and I'm quite flexible. If we have fewer witnesses, maybe on the 15th of November we won't have anything left to do with that particular report. No more witnesses. So we have to stress the priority of Canada Post. But please, do the same, please, when it comes to flexibility. Okay. In no case that we just don't want, once it's been qualified as a priority, that it gets cast into the shadows. Now, perhaps in 2 weeks, or perhaps in 3 weeks, we could have a meeting, one of the two meetings, the first one. But we're talking about the creation of an agency here. And we need time, at least, to look at what that structure is going to be, how it's constructed, and it's very important. We all want to advance and improve things, but we need a certain period of time to reflect. Now, this one just fell out of the sky at us today here, and it won't be for a few weeks. But Canada Post, we've had it in hand since the 20-something. So I would suggest, if I could do a friendly amendment, let's prioritize Canada Post. Of course, if there are witnesses that can't appear or in any fashion, we don't want to waste our time, so we'll fill in the blanks. But if we get to a Thursday and we have no witnesses, we have 2 hours. We have 2 hours to fill, and we could, I think it's a win-win situation.
Are you actually suggesting a date? We have a.
Right, Chair?
Well, your amendment is to do it after the Canada Post. Canada Post could very well be in January, because we don't know when that's going to actually finish. If it's, is there ability, perhaps among the group, we can say, pick a date where we've got till the end of October already covered, like around mid-November, third week of November or something, just so we can set a date. Although you're trying to.
Thanks, Chair. If I may, so we have Madame Gaudreau's motion, which I find to be very, very important, and I think it is a priority that this committee should be giving to this issue, because I'm sure along with my colleagues, a lot of our constituents have been reaching out about this. And then I'm just wondering, it was a question to you, Chair, that's why I waited for your attention. I'm just wondering, when will we be doing the estimates?
I don't know when the government's tabling them.
Would it be in the November-ish month?
Depends when the government tables them. I have no control over that, but usually, well, it just depends when the government tables them. When we actually have them. There's Has to be like, I think it's like 9 days before the last supply day, but we could get them earlier, so.
So I don't think that this is an issue for us to prioritize Marie-Helene's motion and the study on Canada Post. I doubt that it'll be a lengthy or time-consuming to the point or to the detriment of the motion that that the opposition has moved today. I think both are possible. But in my opinion, I think priority should be given to the completion of Ms. Goudreau's study before we start another one. And I know that Mr. Patzer has mentioned that we have in the past had multiple studies going on at the same time. I'm sure, as Mr. Patzer is a seasoned politician on the Hill, that he would agree. It gets very confusing and a little misprioritization with respect to how reports are done, when they're published, how we are going to move forward. I really think at this point it would be best for us to focus on the Canada Post, to go through the estimates, but as we're waiting for the estimates, to bring in Mr. Patzer's motion. I think it's an absolutely solid study or testimony that we should definitely be hearing. However, I don't think it's fair for us to overtake in any way the importance that Madame Goudreau has brought to the Canada Post issue. And so I support this amendment wholeheartedly to say that we should not be starting any other study until the Canada Post is completed. Or we hear the testimony at least before then.
To Mr. Patzer and then Mr. Seaback. Before we do, though, the committee did agree to 2 Canada Post days with when we had our subcommittee, and that was what was adopted by the committee. So it does technically meet that obligation with the intent there will be more as things come out. So it would be, we could still honor what the committee said, start the one and still have the time available. Mr. Patzer?
And I think part of the complexity with the Canada Post study has been the postal strike, right? That has kind of thrown some dates in the to the side because of the nature of the strike, that we just haven't been able to get people. We had the president, then we didn't have the president, now we have the president. Like, it's kind of been a on again, off again kind of thing, right? So by prescribing that this has to happen after the Canada Post study really puts it into the breeze here, kind of at a whim. With the estimates, what I'm reading about the process coming here, and I mean you're all on the government side, so maybe you can enlighten us on this. But there needs to be a standing order change to allow for the budget to become a fall process rather than done in the spring, right? It sounds like there's going to be a structural change done to allow for that to be the regular practice, not a one-off. So I guess until we get clarity around that, I mean, we don't know when the estimates are going to be. So, and like the chair said, until the government tells us when they're going to table them, we don't know. But if there has to be standing order changes done to allow for a fall budget cycle rather than spring, that's really going to, again, muck up timelines here. So I think having this study in the barrel here, ready to go. Of course, after we got the 2 meetings for Canada Post as a priority, but if because of the strike for some reason now we all of a sudden can't get some of the witnesses we want, this study then allows us to fill that while still having the Canada Post, as Ms. Goudreau said, still be the priority, but allows us to fill a day if we need to fill a day. So I would like to get to mine as soon as we can, but I also I appreciate that the chair might need the flexibility to be able to make that happen. And I'm not trying to overtake the Canada Post study. I'm merely trying to say, because there's some uncertainty around how quickly we can finish it, this would be a good substantive motion that I think everybody around this table would like to be able to ask some questions on, because defense procurement is top of mind for a lot of Canadians, and it's a very key piece, I think, for the government going forward, and it's certainly of interest to those of us on the opposition side as well.
Thanks, Mr. Seaback. And then Ms. Gaudreau,
Thank you.
and then Ms. Sutz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm new to the committee. It's my first time here, but you know, when I was vice chair of the International Trade Committee, we often had multiple studies going on at the same time. And we always gave the chair the discretion to fit things in where it made sense, because you might not have any witnesses for the study you're currently working on. And so it would seem to me that the Liberals are saying, if you don't have witnesses, we will only do Canada Post, then the committee doesn't meet. And so that doesn't make sense. And that was a Liberal chaired committee, and we had no problem saying we trust the chair to fit in witnesses to deal with multiple priorities. All studies are a priority. The absolute priority is this Canada Post study. So that should be the priority, and the chair should be instructed that's the priority. And the chair should try and get the witnesses on the Canada Post study as a priority. If that does not happen for a variety of reasons, this committee should not adjourn and not work. The committee should move to something else. And we should all have faith that that will be done properly and fairly, as as I did with the vice chair on the trade committee. And would always say we would always agree that the Liberal chair would try and fit everything in where it makes sense. That's how the committee operated very smoothly for a number of years. And that's my advice to this committee. You can say Canada Post is the priority, and the chair should absolutely make sure that that's the first thing on the agenda. If there are witnesses unable to attend or we can't fill that spot, you move to another study. It seems like it makes logic sense to me.
Has been the habit here where sometimes we've actually had, I think, up to 8 on the go at one time. I have Ms. Khalid, then Ms. Gaudreau, then Ms. Sutz.
J'ai besoin d'un retour, un recap, comme dirait l'autre, sur la proposition.
I think I need a recap on Ms. Sub motion or recommendation, suggestion. A recap, the amendment maybe?
But not to do any studies till the final Canada Post. However, the committee did agree in subcommittee that the committee adopted that we would start with 2. So we've committed to the 2 and we're fulfilling the 2, which does not mean we're only going to do 2, but.
Chair, may I interject,
Yep.
please?
Yep.
I think the question was, what is the actual language of the amendment that we're looking at right now, not what our perception of it is.
Do you have that from what was proposed?
I have not received anything
No.
from Ms. Sutz, but I can infer what she
Why don't Ms.
she
Sutz
meant
provide
as
it
an
to us?
amendment.
The amendment would strictly be that this study start at the completion of the Canada Post witness testimony. And
Sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's what I noted, but is that clear for you? Can we go out and vote on the amendment then? Original study.
A recorded vote?
Yeah, we'll do recorded. Monsieur Gasparou? Yes. Miss Khalid?
Yes.
Madame Rochefort?
Oui.
Miss Sudds?
yes,
Miss Bloch?
No.
Mr. Seaback?
No.
Mr. Padzer?
No.
Et Madame Gaudreau?
Ben oui.
Okay, so yeas pour 5, and nays contre 3. Okay, can we vote on the motion? As amended. Recorded vote? Yeah, please. Mr. Gasparou? Mr. Gasparou? Can you hear me? You're voting in favor? Yes? Ms. Khalid?
Yes.
Madame Rochefort?
Oui.
Ms. Sudds?
yes,
Ms. Bloch?
Yes.
Mr. Seaback?
Yes.
Mr. Padzer,
Yes.
Madame Gaudreau. Okay, yeas pour 8 à 8 and nays contre 0, 0.
Okay, passed as amended. Now we will get to Mrs. Block.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I guess great minds think alike, because I too want to take the opportunity to introduce a motion today. I think it's just as timely as the motion that my colleague brought forward earlier, and it is on illegal labor, and it would read as follows: that in light of recent reports of illegal foreign labor being used on federally funded infrastructure projects, the Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates hold at least 2 meetings with officials from the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat and other government officials and representatives of the building trades across Canada to examine this issue within the context of federally funded infrastructure projects. And I'll just make a few points to why I believe this is important. Illegal labor has gutted entry-level opportunities for young Canadians trying to get involved in the trades. Improper labor regulations undermine safety, drives down wages, and ultimately erodes trust in our industry. This isn't just a labor issue, it's a criminal issue. Illegal labor creates a shadow economy that helps criminal networks thrive. When taxpayer-funded projects use illegal labor, Canadian taxpayers are footing the bill. Canadians expect their infrastructure dollars to support Canadian workers, not unregulated illegal labor. We're seeing a 2-tier labor market, one where Canadians follow the rules and another where exploitation is the business model. Workers without legal protections are vulnerable to abuse and have no recourse when something goes wrong. Federally funded infrastructure should reflect Canadian values, which are fairness, safety, and respect for the rule of law. Thank you.
Are you sending it to the clerk?
Yes, we will definitely send it to the clerk.
Yep.
I would ask for your and the clerk's esteemed knowledge and advice on the relevance of this in this committee and whether it is admissible as a motion here.
Sure. Maybe we can get a copy of it.
Sure. Sorry.
You're referring to federally funded projects, right?
Mm-hmm. Contracts,
No.
yes.
I think it's in line with, or in order, rather.
Is that your official ruling? Because, and if I may, it seems to me that we're not talking about the
You're
money
welcome
that
to
is.
challenge the ruling if you wish, but
Okay,
it's
in
not
that
a
case then,
debatable.
Chair, I do challenge your ruling.
Sure.
Clerk, recorded vote.
Yes, please.
Mr. Gasparo, on whether or not you're voting in favor and disfavor of the ruling by the chair. Mr. Gasparo? Okay, against. Ms. Khalid?
Against, Chair.
Madame Rochefort? Ms. Sudds?
Against.
Ms. Block?
4.
Mr. Seaback?
En favor.
Mr. Padzer?
Yes.
Et Madame Gaudreau?
Contre.
So yeas pour 3, and nays contre 5, 5.
Fortunately, it is ruled out of order, Mrs. Block. The, getting back to the issue of the ministers, it was the request of the committee, subcommittee that was passed and adopted by the committee that they both appear separately. So we will go back to the clerk to address with them, and then the very next meeting, we will update you on their availability. But it was the request of the committee that the committee did adopt to have them appear separately. Sorry, Ms. Gaudreau, just so everyone hears, regarding the ministers, it was adopted by the committee to request them separately, not together. So I'll send it back to our clerk to follow up with the ministers to express what the will of the committee was as adopted, and we'll update everyone at the next meeting. If there's nothing else, we will be adjourned. Thank you very much.